West Point classmates or whatever. Whatever you think's appropriate.
Go live. All right. Okay, hey, welcome. We're back. Welcome back to A More Perfect Union. I'm here with my good friend Trip Allard. My name's Corey Henry, and we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. We're here to ensure that we are creating a more perfect union. So, Trip, how you been, man? Welcome back.
Hey, man, great to be back. I've been great. Getting ready for my kid's first football game. Kindergarten to second grade flag football this weekend.
Are you coaching?
Yeah, I'm coaching. Up here in the Texas Panhandle, we don't have a lot of the craziness that's going on in the country with COVID-19, and we handle a little different up here, and we don't have the rioting and things that are going on, but, I'm paying pretty close attention because the future of the country matters to me, for my kids and their kids, and, all of our citizens across the country.
Indeed, man.
Man, with the Breonna Taylor case ruling.
What are your thoughts, man? I know that's a hot button. That's one we've been waiting to really talk about, on this forum. So, it's a lot of emotion with this one, man. I mean, even last night, the news, the media, they won't let it go. They force the athletes to have a voice. So we heard LeBron's comments, but I'm curious, man, from your point of view, what's been the word? What have you been hearing about this Breonna Taylor case, and how do you feel about it?
Well, I think the people that are paying attention, right, that are informed and looking at it, it seems like they get divided into two separate camps, right? You've got your BLM, LeBron James, largely the black community and Democrats that are basically saying that justice for Breonna Taylor was not served, right? Anything short of a murder indictment, and for them to go to trial and potentially be convicted for murder for one or two or three of the police officers involved.
Yeah.
Anything short of that wouldn't have been enough. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum where you've got the Blue Lives Matter, the pro-police people,
yep,
predominantly white people, predominantly conservatives, right? Because we're pretty polarized today.
yep,
That are basically saying the finding and the ruling by the and the readouts by the Attorney General, this rock star black up and coming politician in the state of Kentucky, right? Since he read it out, that everything's kosher, right? And I think that the beauty of you and I looking at it, like, we don't easily get just kind of herded out towards the edge.
Yeah.
We think there's some gray versus the black and white.
I would look at it with, how would that case go down in the military? If that was on a military base with military MPs and two soldiers that ended up getting killed because a soldier who was armed, and soldiers get in trouble, they get into all kind of craziness. Don't think that drugs is not a part of military life. How would that go down in the military, do you think? How would that whole thing, how would that have gone down?
I think it's different for a number of reasons, right? Is that usually you're isolated and no one's really talking about it in the national narrative.
Yeah.
I think that, again, the polarization was based on the story and the narrative on the facts,
yeah,
right? Whether you're a Blue Lives Matter, it was told that Breonna Taylor was aiding and abetting a criminal and that the cops did everything right and she got shot, right? So you've got that end of the spectrum, and then you've got the other end of the spectrum that's being pushed by national media, other outlets, that we first heard that Breonna Taylor got murdered in her sleep. You know, at first, my visceral reaction was, that's terrible. Oh my gosh. You heard that that her boyfriend had already been apprehended. They were going after him, and the search warrant had nothing to do with Breonna Taylor. There was zero evidence related to Breonna Taylor, right?
Yeah.
Now, the facts that were presented are totally contrarian to that, right? Like, but there's still some gray area to me, right? And I think that that's where we want to focus on, right?
I think the thing about the people who live to tell the facts is that they have time to relive the facts. You know what I mean? They have time to craft the most perfect story and to get everybody corroborated on what is their party line. You know, Breonna and her boyfriend, they don't get the same benefit of the doubt. They get, hey, a guy was in my house, I shot him. They shot me once and shot my girlfriend 6 times, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Where is the reasonable understanding of negligence or incompetence? Or you cannot tell me that that was good police work.
I think first, to where we come to like find a common ground that's inside the spectrum is like, I think it's worth just dispelling the myths that fed this hate and this mob mentality that only wanted a murder trial. So first and foremost, Breonna Taylor was not murdered.
She was not murdered. Let's take that off. Breonna Taylor was not murdered. According to the law, it was a legal return of fire, right?
Taylor, there was a legal warrant based on evidence, and I've read a very thick packet that was sent to me by an inside source that showed her interaction with her boyfriend, her really good evidence, and even kind of after the incident of the phone transcripts, you know, that back evidence for the search warrant, that she was actually, you know, taking control and securing some of his money and riding around with him in places, you know,
none of which is worthy of this.
Right? No. I'm not saying that, but the search warrant, right, that led them to there. It was part of a coordinated effort, and I believe there were 3 sites approved in the search warrant as part of a overarching operation to target her previous boyfriend, right? The drug dealer, kind of the leader, the alpha. They took down 3 separate places, and that was all included. At first, I thought it was, hey, the cops just randomly hit the wrong house. She got killed in her sleep, and that was the end of the story, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to be the actual facts.
Here's a question. Let's talk drug dealers and the way that they're portrayed in American society, right? Because
Sure.
The word drug dealer, in some circles, terrorist and drug dealer are the same guy, right? But most of America is, how big is drug dealer as a legal profession in America? Yet on the illegal side, they become terrorists, you know? And I mean that to say this: a man was making commerce out of his home that was illegal commerce, whether that be selling illegal cable or illegal substances, right? None of which is punishable by death, right? So to send an operation in the middle of the night to go and investigate with guns would not seem to me to be the proper response to somebody running an illegal business. It would
fair.
that you would
That's
come to
fair.
the house and talk to her and say, "Hey, man, we got some evidence here that's saying that there's drugs moving in and out of your house, and we know you to be a public servant, so we would like for you to clear this up for us. And it wouldn't be bad if you just stopped, right?" But no,
Right.
that's not how they decided to handle that situation. They decided to handle it like a military operation, and we got what happens in military operations: collateral damage, dead people. And I want, on my side of the middle, I would love to see the community say, "Hey, I'm sorry for the incompetence of our forces here. I'm sorry that they couldn't be a little bit more capable and professional of addressing potential illegal business without thinking that it needs to be murder as a result, or death as the end result to how you fix drug dealing, you know?"
So if we unwind and talk about that, I think it's interesting because a lot of the people on the spectrum of the cops did everything right. You know, I think that your perspective is very valuable, right? And I had yet to hear that. You know, like, okay, they've got a target set of 3 different houses, right? 2 of them were people, two of the houses potentially had violent people in them, right? That might respond. The other one, the one where the shooting actually happens, it was, an ex-girlfriend, supposedly still maybe friends and involved in
Yeah.
whatever it means, with her current boyfriend that had, I think, gone out to dinner or cooked dinner at home.
Yep.
Like if you capture all those people and roll them up and observe the house, the only thing they thought they had there was money, right? So what is a 6-hour delay until the sun comes up, or 7 or 8 hours to, hey, let's just watch the house. Let's knock and not be cowboys in the morning. Like, what are they actually going to be able to do?
Yeah.
Like burn the money, and then you just don't have $12,000 or $8,000 or whatever the jailhouse transcript said. So your point is, it's very valid. But even if they're going in, right, it sounds like, to me, like that target, that house, the target of the total target set, probably could have been handled different.
Yeah.
Than the ones that housed his crew, right?
Yeah. So, and I want the Attorney General to say that. I want him to say, we've got things to fix, right? I want the Chief of Police to say, we've got things to fix. Because, again, I'm going back to the military or just general competence. I trust you to carry a gun, right? As a citizen, if you're a police officer, I trust you to be the most professional with that weapon and to only use it because you absolutely have to. That does not mean that you have the right to turn any place into a war zone, right? Because I'm going home tonight. No, I don't, I don't get it. There could have been more people. It's very lucky that Breonna's kids were not in that hallway, or that the whole family was not in that hallway, because, it seemed like they didn't care, right?
Man, that is one fuzzy part for me. And, I have a brother that's in law enforcement, and I err on the side of law enforcement. He's been shot serving a warrant in the past, but I promise you that he never told me a story about, even when he got shot serving a warrant, as part of SWAT, that they smoked everybody in the house, you know what I mean? Or just sprayed. I never even heard that in the military, like there's video games that my 5 and 6-year-old play that, like, you shoot the target with the gun.
Yeah.
Remember, like, the old Nintendo ones, it was like Hogan's Alley or something. It flip around, you shoot the dude with the gun, right?
Men in Black, right?
It doesn't make any sense in this whole readout. It's like, I get supporting police officers. I get the guy got shot in the leg, right? So maybe he's shooting and falling. I've never been shot in the leg, and tried to kill someone, return fire and protect myself. And maybe, maybe it was a long hallway, the layout of it. But you've got 2 people in a hallway, one with a gun, one without. And there's nothing said about the one without the gun got shot 6 times, and the
I would
one
love
with
to
the
see
gun got
this.
shot
I would
once.
love to see the digital recreation of that event. I would love to see it, and I know that we have the technology to recreate it, because there's no way that you can show me the digital recreation of that event and then say that there was no wrong done, you know? And
Right.
I'm not talking about the guy that got shot. If he was the one that let go of all those bullets, I'm good. But
You
the
mean
other guy,
he shot once, he got shot once, and then Breonna got shot 6 times.
by him or by the group?
No, by the police officers. The guy that shot.
Right?
No, that's your point. I mean, it's the most important point, and it's one that I don't even know how like the grand jury thing works. I probably do some research.
Yeah.
But do they get some sort of advocate on behalf of the victim to be, because whoever that advocate was, if there's an advocate there, they didn't do a damn good job, man. I'm just telling you.
They did nothing. I think about the Australian lady that was shot in Minnesota by the cop,
You
right?
sent me that. Yeah, no, it's a good.
And the state requested months for that guy to serve, right? The state requested that. Not
And for the audience, it was a white Australian lady, which you would assume, and it was I think a Somali immigrant,
a Muslim police officer.
Police officer that was sitting in her vehicle. There, it was him and the partner, and the white Australian lady had called in like some sort of domestic abuse or sexual assault going on in close proximity to their house, and she came out to the police car and startled the Muslim police officer.
Yeah.
And he pulled his gun and shot her. Right.
Yep.
And then he got what? 5 years, 12 years, something crazy.
12 years in prison.
Because when she flashed her hands, it startled him. And so again, I get the relevance of comparison. In other conversations, I think it's hard to do apples to apples comparison in different geographies with different stakeholders involved. If it's a case, but right, it does merit kind of analysis and comparison to say it's a white lady that got shot with a black cop or a black lady with a white cop. So is it just because the investigation was different, right? Is the shots fired in the Breonna Taylor case the thing that changes it, right? In their minds, it's really hard to do apples and oranges, but it's really easy to feed the narrative of, hey, the white cop's got a break and the black cop got sent up the river for the rest of his relevant life.
12 years in prison. And all I'm saying is that precedent goes nationally. You cannot tell me that incident does not set some kind of precedent for what happened in Louisville. You can't tell me that they cannot even consider what happened in Minnesota and then say, but that's totally different. This was, and these guys get not even a reprimand. They don't, not even a letter of this, not even a demerit. You know what I mean?
I think in isolation, people on the spectrum of Blue Lives Matter, white conservatives, law and order will say, you can't compare them. It's not an apples to apples. But taken in the context of 1 versus 1,000 cases, and maybe you've got evidence of systemic racism, right? Which is what our show is going to, we're going to talk about. Racism, systemic racism, institutional racism. It's probably evidence of systemic racism and institutional racism in that incident in Minnesota and potentially in this one here. Now, we talked a little bit about how it didn't make sense if you were to do a digital recreation and these guys got nothing, right? I'm not saying that they should have been tried for murder, But what about something in the middle, like administrative action?
Give me
Like,
some. Give me a
like
letter.
you got to go to the simulator for 1,000 hours
Something.
before you get to go back and do these types of operations. Was there anything like that came out of this? Do you know? I don't know.
They did. I will say that they're making some overtures to have more police officers live in the community. Right?
Yeah, but that was the civil case, man. That had nothing to do with the AG's findings and the personal.
In their regard, I think they're pushing everything to the FBI and saying, "Hey, we're not going to take out our own. If you guys want to come and investigate, and kind of like the NFL does with the call on the field. All right, well, this is the call on the field. Now you're welcome to go under the tent and see if you're willing to reverse the call on the field. But the call on the field is we're safe, right?
But they send it up to New Jersey. So what you're saying is the local law enforcement and DOJ folks, they're not going to lose credibility with their people and risk their police force walking away en masse like we've seen other places.
Yep.
But potentially, and this is where it's crazy that the mob mentality, like you're burning the city, you're rioting. It seems organized. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
You're shooting cops. One, a black guy that got gut shot is in worse shape than the white cop that got shot. But the BLM people aren't talking about it. We'll probably cover that in future shows. Yeah. But if they would allow the process to play out, I guess we don't know that federal charges or federal findings or censure or administrative action could still potentially bring justice that might satiate some of the thirst and hunger for justice for Breonna Taylor.
And I think,
Corey, Breonna Taylor.
As we look at just us, because we get to armchair quarterback things and things aren't final in the court of public opinion. I guess being a solution-minded person, if I was giving not the locker room talk, the post-game talk to the city of Louisville about how are they going to move forward, like what is the proper way that we need to look at, repairing the relationship with the community? Do they care? Do the police care to repair the relationship with that community? Because as you look at the other citizens in that neighborhood, what is their disposition towards the police in that community? And does the police force care what those people think about them?
Right. I think I don't know any cops in Louisville, but I know cops where I grew up, right? And I know the beat where my brother worked, and he was a white guy working a mainly black and Hispanic beat, right? I did a lot, not a lot. On a handful of occasions, I rode along with him and saw the way that he interacted with his community, right? Yeah. And I got to meet a lot of the police officers that he worked with of all races, right? And of all backgrounds. And I think a lot of them do it because they're passionate about it for their community across the country, right? So my sneaking suspicion is that the police officers in Louisville want to make their community safer, right? Like most places. I'm sure there's some dudes that just do it for a paycheck and maybe they're power hungry and they want to be able to boss people around. But I think the good majority, and I kind of think about that just about people in general, that most are just good people and they want to do their job well and they're passionate about it, or they go do something else, right? There's just too much risk, right, associated with being a cop, especially a beat cop. Yep. I think it'd be better to be like a SWAT guy where you're all geared up and you're going in on a specific target and you're hunting packs. Like being a beat cop, that's hard, right?
Yeah.
Now, do I think that there's probably ways to do it better? And I think we're going to cover that in future shows. Yeah. Right. I think there's a lot of lessons learned from the military operations overseas in the global war on terror, whether it's security stability operations or counterinsurgency, that the police across the country should probably learn, right?
Absolutely.
Like one being live amongst the communities that you're trying to, live and be a part, right? Versus this model, of the cops are bad, they're riding around in cars, and the only thing they're doing, what did you say? Search and apprehend?
Search and apprehend. They're waiting to catch somebody doing something bad so they can whoop whoop and write you a ticket or charge you something or take you to jail, right?
Or in like rural communities, like they're just running license plates and trying to look for people running through, they're running the highways as like county sheriffs looking for like warrants associated with license plates.
Yeah.
And, maybe there's things they could be doing, with the community to make it better. So I think that it's going to be fun to explore some of those things. So in this instance, though, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen in the next couple of weeks before the FBI findings and rulings come out?
I think, like everything, I think the timing of it is interesting, because it creates a national disturbance potentially during a very critical time in this election cycle. I think, this could have very well been announced in November the 19th, the 20th. It didn't necessarily have to be announced late September like this. We've learned how America reacts to these kinds of issues, right? So I think there's some gamesmanship that's being played here, or maybe it's just serendipitous. Maybe it's just a matter of pure timing. But I think the opportunities to get people back out of the house, back in these swells, get people back watching the news and back listening to the innuendos. All of that is about polarizing or activating, right? Activating voters or activating based on a narrative. They want angry voters to the polls. And I think
both sides.
I think voting is not a time where we should be feeding anger and fear. It should be a time where we're feeding optimism and hope, right? And people are picking their candidate based on their hopes, not based on their fears, right? And not scare me from the other guy enough so that I've scared into voting for the other guy. That's ridiculous, and we need to stop that. It's going to continue to destroy the fabric of this whole thing. And
we've seen it, unfortunately, on all topics: fear, hate, divide, polarization.
My daughter she's 7, right? And my wife was talking to the kids about, hey, kids, what did you learn today from your time at school? And my daughter goes, I know. She said, don't vote for John Ossoff. My 7-year-old, right?
John Ossoff.
He's one of the guys running for Congress here in Georgia, right? And my 7-year-old says,
what is it?
Don't vote for John Ossoff. And we're like, what? We said, why is that, baby girl? She said, because he's going to raise our taxes.
Hey, maybe it's a valid point. I don't know.
I mean, the point is, this idea of media, it's social. It's these ads running on YouTube. It's these ads running on all of your Instagram and Twitter. They know your history. They know what you click on. They know what you like, and they're using it against you, and they're creating a polarized society. And it's not the media. It's a collective. It's becoming more of a collective. And so is body cams and people filming things and saying, hey, take a look at this. This is pretty jacked up. And that's not the media. That's people observing some stuff that's pretty jacked up and sharing it with everybody and people making their own decisions about how they feel about it. You know,
I love that sentiment of making decisions about optimism, and I think about opportunity, right? And you're a pretty optimistic and solutions guy. I love that about you. You're always a very, friendly guy from back at school. And I think that's allowed you to network with people and look at things. And you got to experience a pretty cool opportunity. And I think that's where our next show is going to go.
Absolutely.
Talk about opportunity and optimism. Can you give us a little context of what it was you got to do today and what we're going to talk about in our next show?
Yeah, absolutely. I had the pleasure of
I'm definitely going to have to do my homework because I want to be able to kind of play devil's advocate on what's good and bad. I need you to send me it. But
and I'll tell you, when we have this discussion, and the discussion is about President Trump's economic plan for Black people. He has singled out the Black community for the efforts that he has made personally, professionally, and as the president that have benefited the Black community uniquely more than any president since President Lincoln. That's his.
So how did you hear about this? How did you witness it?
I was, I have a lot of people in my network from my time working on the Kemp campaign, and the president was coming to Atlanta. So there's a small community of conservative.
You have to witness it firsthand today and hear him talk about the points. How much did he veer outside of that? Did he,
Nope.
did he go off script like he does in his
Nope.
in his campaign rallies, or was he laser focused on policy?
Laser focused today. Today he talked about, the things that he has done, the opportunity zones. He's talked about the First Steps Act. He's talked about, his relationship with the HBCUs, the millions, if not billions of dollars that are going to be released into economic development in Black communities. He spoke about not just the last 3 years, but more what those last 3 years mean for the next 10 years, 20 years, 40 years. And I think that is something to be optimistic about. And there is some optimism. And if you are a businessman, no matter what color you are in America, you're not mad right now that Donald Trump is the president, right?
Right.
You are actually.
Hold on. We got to save the punchline, I think. We're getting into it. It's a good teaser, right? I think that we probably got to save it because we're getting into another show, but
Indeed.
I'm really interested to see where we go, and I want to be educated on it. I want to see the document.
I have some very positive opinions about the economic development effects of the Donald Trump presidency. I'm a very big fan of opportunity zones and the Jobs Act. I think there's a lot that needs to be explained. So I look forward to our next talk. I hope on my part that we have done some justice to Breonna's family. I personally hurt with this one. This one is exhausting, and I'm just, to a degree, we're all dealing with a bit of the sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? So this is therapy for me, and I hope that somebody can identify with what we're trying to do, and we can find the middle in these situations, because I will not let these situations destroy my mentality about how I feel about my community.
Man, I think it's so important that we figure out how to not allow the dividers to divide us as a country and citizens. I think the majority of the citizens, when we interact, we really love each other, right? Yep. But they forced us to such a far extreme, right? And part of that, I had a conversation with friends in Oklahoma this weekend. Part of that is just being empathetic. It's the conversation started about the whole BLM and NFL and boycotting that. And I was like, dude, what did Colin Kaepernick do to you? I served. At first it offended me, but I got to a point where I'm like, okay, great. It didn't affect me at all for him to kneel, right? So on either side, we've got to start looking and really trying to stand in the shoes and see perspective instead of just saying, this is how it is. I don't agree, because a lot of that is you're being programmed to be on either end of the spectrum. And the social dilemma and different things, like, there are very manipulative forces and powerful forces that are pushing us further and further apart. Yeah. And we got to find ways to come together, right? We got to find those ways.
Yep. This is about a constantly perfecting. America is never done cooking. America is very much still cooking, right? And it's going to take that mentality to understand that it was never perfected, right? And that's why we're talking about creating a more perfect union, right? So
I think that's a wonderful point to sign off on. And if we can fit another show in this weekend, let's get after it. If not, I'll talk to you early next week. Enjoy your family.
And you too, man. Take care.
All right.